I'm grouping Ramirez and McCoy together for a very specific reason that involves a tinfoil hat theory that I will talk about at the end of this video. So we all know that 12 months is really an epilogue for what happened in Peace Talks and Battleground, but it's also resetting the 5D chessboard that is Harry's life to get ready for Mirror Mirror, because apparently Chapter 1 of Mirror Mirror stuff is going to happen, things are going to go down, and we do not have time for setup before that, so that's why we have this book. Today I'm going to focus on a very small part of it. I'm going to focus on Carlos Ramirez and the White Council and McCoy and sort of what's going on that front. First, I want to start out with Carlos Ramirez because of that argument at the end of Battleground. You know, the one that made Michael Carpenter swear like a sailor. My gut reaction is that Carlos really wants to be Harry's friend, but I can also see him using his position to spy on Harry on behalf of the White Council. Because at this point, he's really not trusted. I mean, they kicked him out. Like, the relationship is severely broken here. Alana is from the school of Morgan. She doesn't trust Harry as far as she can throw him, and she wishes he would just turn himself in and face the justice that he so obviously deserves. Dresden obviously does not take crap like that. I know that Alana, like most wizards, probably doesn't know that Morgan wasn't a betrayer and turncoat, especially since Lucio is still alive, but I feel like she'd give Harry the benefit of the doubt, or at least a little bit of credit, if she knew what happened in that book and had a better idea of the services that he'd provided to the White Council and proved time and time again that he wasn't a bad guy. Anyways, Carlos is very much the establishment, and he also understands how Harry reacts to people giving him crap. I also vaguely remember him saying something about keep your friends close and your enemies closer, or some variation of that, to Harry in Peace Talks, and so he might be trying to be cool with Harry just to make sure that he can keep an eye on him. Plus, him and Harry are supposed to take revenge on the Black Court for what they did to Wild Bill and Yoshimo, and Harry is really Ramirez's best bet in being able to get this revenge, because Harry has a clear calling card and permission to come and try to mess with Dracul if he so chooses, as foolhardily and a terrible idea as that is. And the White Council has decided to not use resources in order to retrieve those two wardens, or even try to look for Chandler, wherever he may be. So really, Harry is his only hope for trying to get any sort of revenge. When Harry's establishing boundaries with Carlos and Elena, he says that they need to call ahead like normal guests. And I think that this is important. Warden showing up unannounced and hostile doesn't really entitle them to guest rights in the castle, and Harry would be well within his rights to throw them out or escalate the situation as the offended party if they decided to violate guest rights and try to take him down. Plus, it would be a really bad idea. Like Carlos tells Elena, Harry is one of the top 20 most powerful wizards, and they would need backup, like the Blackstaff, in order to take him out if they really, really wanted to. So even if Alana wanted to and Carlos was on board with it, it wouldn't happen because they both like, existing. Plus he has a Valkyrie and Merlin's Fortress backing him up, as if he needed it to win this particular fight. But what Harry is doing here, while establishing healthy boundaries and everything, is offering Carlos, at least Carlos, I assume Alana, if she, tones it down a little bit, the ability to come into his castle as a guest and have a civil interaction, and it forces an equalish playing field so that the White Council's rules and objectives aren't the ones that are dictating how they are allowed to interact with one another. Because if Harry's not part of the council, he's not bound by their rules. They might think he is because he's a wizard, but they cut him off, and things are different now. McCoy comes to visit Harry in December, and on the surface, this is the heart-to-heart closure moment that they both needed but couldn't get during Battleground. When there were literally bigger fish to fry at the moment. But there's a couple of hints that got dropped as throwaway lines that are making me think twice. There's definitely, at least in McCoy's mind, some parallels between Laura and Harry's relationship and Margaret's relationship with Lord Wraith. Both Margaret and Harry love to live dangerously, and Margaret was hurting and found her escape in Lord Wraith. He was her medicine, the substance that kept her going even though it was really, really bad for her. Margaret was likely hooked on that vampire mojo, and that would explain why she took so long to leave him and why she was so closely aligned at him at one point, to where she invited her dad over for dinner and tried to get him on board with whatever they were cooking up. One of my favorite new characters in this book is Bear, and it rocked me when she tensed up and went on high alert when McCoy walked through the castle doors. Her reaction makes me think that McCoy would probably be able to beat her in a fight if he really wanted to, even with taking whatever hit to his power he would by crossing a threshold as an invited guest and then fighting against the people there. But yeah, tell me in the comments down below if you remember anything more about thresholds than I do. I'm not quite sure what the situation with this particular castle is. I feel like I've talked about it before, but let's talk about it in the comments and learn something. From her perspective, this is really bad after being visited by wardens because McCoy is the Blackstaff. And an unexpected visit from the Blackstaff right after pissing off a bunch of wardens probably means that he's been assigned to carry out his duties on the person that you're supposed to be bodyguarding, and this is not a fight that she wants to get in if she can possibly help it. Much like Dresden, and we don't get her inner monologue, so I can't confirm this, but she's very good at playing things very close to the chest. She's obviously someone who doesn't get hired out unless something really bad is going to happen at a large scale, and McCoy's smiling when he sees her and saying that he's obliged to her for working this contract and keeping Harry safe says a lot. Now, this could just be an old-timey way to say, thank you very much. But since the rules about courtesy and keeping your word are so important to the various magical factions in the Dresdenverse, I'm going to lean into this a little bit more and say that McCoy is so grateful that he feels like he owes her, or Vaterung even, a favor. Vaterung could have put any Valkyrie on Laura's contract to protect Harry. And Laura would have gladly paid him a crapload of money in order to get those services. But putting someone of Bear's level on Harry's side when she doesn't work anything less dire than a world war, right after he gets kicked off the White Council, is a hell of a favor. At one point, McCoy asks Bear if they're following the mortals into a conflict or if it's the other way around. We know that the Battle of Chicago brought the magical world into the mortals' public attention, and the normals are scared. We see the protests. We see the oppression of magically gifted people by the renegade members of the Brotherhood of St. Bridget, among others, and the agents swabbing the castle for traces of whatever supposedly causes the heebie-jeebies. One thing I see being set up is the question of if the magical and normals are going to team up or if they're going to tear each other apart and make it easy for the Fomor to come into the world. I think that's really what the Fomor were trying to do and what Ethne, you, and the Outsiders want, and that makes me really sad. We also see with Fitz and Will that at least some of the magical community got a power boost from all the ambient magic that was floating around during Battleground. Even with a lot of minor talents getting turned into Fomor servitors and taken out during the conflict, there could be a lot more people with minor talents or minor talents that leveled up to White Council level or just below that running around, and the White Council is going to have a hell of the time with their numbers depleted from the war with the Red Court, enforcing the laws and doing things the way that they have been for a long time. I think this is going to give Harry's approach to justice and reforming people who practice black magic on accident a chance to happen instead of the wardens doing what they do best, like in the good old days. I really don't see how they're going to not destroy themselves if they don't change and adapt here. Now, I grouped Carlos and McCoy together for a very specific reason. I cannot find the Reddit thread where I saw this, but I thought it was cool. After the battle at the castle against the Black Court, Carlos says that he will have an alibi for what happened and nobody will know that he helped. More or less. And one thing that I saw people say is that a way that you could do that is be in two places at once. And a way you could do that is time travel. We know time travel bad. We know that the corner hounds will try to get you. And we know that it's against the laws of magic. And that Carlos specifically tells Harry to not talk about, oh, if I could go back and save Murphy and make sure that Rudolph couldn't do what he did, in just a mournful, regretful way. And then Carlos is like, Harry, even I have limits. Stop it. If Carlos did use time travel in order to get this alibi, it means that he has permission. And the only way that I can see him having permission is if he was the Blackstaff's apprentice. Now, McCoy's had several apprentices. We know that he knows that Harry's cool with Carlos and thinks very highly of him, which probably means that McCoy thinks very highly of him. And Carlos is also establishment enough to be controllable by the White Council. If they give McCoy the job, I don't think that that's like a solid deal breaker requirement, but we're just going to go with it. I think that it's possible because I don't know how else he would have an alibi unless Molly decided to do some sort of illusion, or if Alana is now Team Dresden, or at least like knows he's not a bad guy and is more willing to tone down her hatred and distrust of him and maybe lie to help Carlos out a little bit here. But I just thought that that was a good theory. It's possible. I think that I think it's unlikely, but I still thought it was entertaining and it made me think, and I figured I'd share it with y'all. All right, I need to go do scripts for the rest of this book. I think it would be cool to talk about the White Court and Lara, and we need to talk about Murphy, and there's just other things that we need to talk about in this book, and I just had to get something out because it's been a long time since I put out a video, and life has been very, very busy lately, but I still want to do this channel because it's fun. And I know everybody enjoys nerding out with me in the comments, and we have a good time, and I want to give the people what they want. So thank you so much for watching my channel and this video, and it's so good to like talk to people in the comments, and I really appreciate all of y'all. Thanks.